Good evening and welcome to the Friday Memorial Library sponsored candidate forum. My name is Monica Lavold and I am the director of Friday Memorial Library. And with me at the table, we have Ava Zach, Izzy Perry, and Azariah Zapeta. These are all students who have been in Mr. Ryan Zubra's class at the high school. And that civics class did write and submit all questions that we will be asking tonight. So we will be starting with the candidates for District 6 Alderperson. There will be, go through how we're going to do this. Okay. So the event is sponsored by Friday Memorial Library. Libraries support free access to information and lifelong learning. And the role of a public library is not limited merely to ideas and information that have been previously recorded and published, stored between the cover of a book, or recorded on DVD or roll of microfilm. Rather, the library is dedicated to shining a light on the vital issues and interests of our community as they are played out in real time. And we are happy to support a forum to help our community make informed decisions at the ballot box. So what I'm going to do is very quickly go over some general rules, and then we will stand for Pledge of Allegiance to start. So general rules to the audience: if you will silence any cell phones or devices, that would actually be very appreciated. Also, if you would be so kind as to refrain from clapping, cheering, booing, or really obvious gestures, that would be great too. We will have, as a program overview, the first session followed by a second session. I have 10 questions that were prepared by the high school civics students for each session. Some of the questions will overlap, but most will not. And we may or may not get to all 10 questions. So the hope is that after about an hour, whichever comes first, the 10 questions are about an hour, we will do closing statements. We'll then take a short break, and session 2 will be the candidates for mayor. Okay, format. So in each session, we will have an opportunity for opening statements. Now, this is decided by a coin toss. We'll determine who gets to open first. We did actually do a coin toss for District 6 Alderperson, and it was won by Mike Montello, and he has chosen to open first. So he will be giving his opening statement first. Those are limited to 2 minutes. Then I will ask the pre-prepared questions in order, alternating with who gets to answer first. Each candidate will have an opportunity to answer, and then each candidate will have an opportunity to offer a rebuttal if so desired. They have 3 minutes for the first answer. They have 2 minutes for the rebuttal. My high school students with me will be timekeeping, and they will also be holding up sheets of paper to communicate with the candidates as to how much time is left and when time is up. When the yellow card goes up, 1 minute is left. When the red card is up, your time is done. At the end of questions, or approximately 1 hour, they will then give a closing statement. In this case, Bill Kwasny will give the closing statement first, and then Mike Montello will end it. Closing statements are limited to 2 minutes, and there are no rebuttals there. And they should really focus on why voters should vote for you. So I will invite the candidates up to the dais, and as they are doing that, we will stand and say Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here tonight. As I mentioned, in the coin toss, Mike Montello was given the opportunity to choose, and he has opted to begin his opening statement. As soon as you begin, you will have 2 minutes.
I don't have enough time to breathe if I only have 2 minutes. First of all, I want to say thank you for everybody who showed up tonight. Mr. Subra, for your class, students, for the work that you've done. This is terrific. I was a student council president when I was in high school. That's where my resume stops. And it's great that young people can get involved in government and see how it works. My name is Mike Montello. My wife, Liz, who's in the audience, and I have lived in New Richmond for 43 years. We have 3 kids. They're all New Richmond graduates. We have 10 grandkids. I come from a family of 10 kids. I worked in the finance business for 13 years, 10 years at the First National Bank. Prior to switching to my job at Berners Northtown, I will be there 30 years, Lord willing, come May 1st. My dad was a first-generation American who fought in the Battle of the Bulge. The first home my wife and I owned was in the old district that we live in now, was in Southview. It's not in this district today, but the first home we owned in 1981 was in Southview. Just a little bit about my volunteer community service history. I've been involved in over 25 different community activities, starting in 1985 when I joined the New Richmond Ambulance Service, and I actually was involved in starting a church softball league. I've been on the Chamber of Commerce board and the president. I was first elected to the city council the first time in 1989. I served 2 terms. I was involved in the pool committee, the swimming pool that we have the center now. I was on the committee that worked to get that done. I was a member of New Richmond Rotary for 18 years, 2 different times, but a total of 18 years, and I coordinated the Strive program for 21 years. When we started, we had a very narrow group of high school kids we work with, but in the end, it was the entire senior class that we were presenting monthly to. I was bringing speakers in. Boys tennis coach at New Richmond High School for 16 years. I coordinated the community cleanup for 2 years. And then I read once a week to an elementary school class for 10 years. I did it for an entire school year for 10 years. And I've been a multiple volunteer in a lot of things at the school. So I got more to say, but I'm out of time. So.
Correct. And Bill, if you would like to give your opening statement, please.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Bill Kwasny. My wife, Jan, is in the audience here today. We have been in New Richmond for about 1.5 years, but I was working in New Richmond as an engineer starting in 1991. I am a civil engineer. I went to Marquette University in Milwaukee, got my bachelor's degree in 1966, spent 2 years in the Army, in the Corps of Engineers as a construction officer, then came back and completed my master's degree. Started my engineering career with a company in Chicago, and a year later, they gave me a choice of transferring to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Detroit, Michigan, or Green Bay, Wisconsin. I took Green Bay. So I've been working as an engineer across Wisconsin since 1971. I have literally worked on projects from Superior to Kenosha and Green Bay down to Platteville. Hundreds of those included municipal projects of the type that are important to any city. My wife and I have 5 children, 15 grandchildren. Most of our children, well, let's see, 2 of them live in eastern Wisconsin, 3 of them are south of the Mason-Dixon line, which I find a bit strange since I had them skiing and ice skating by the age of 6, and now they've turned into wimps. They live down where it's warm, but it gives us a chance to visit them. Within my career, I have participated in various things outside of the engineering world. I have served with the Wisconsin Society of Professional Engineers and the Minnesota Society of Professional Engineers in career counseling for high school students to tell them what a career in civil engineering is like. I have served on committees for engineering societies. I must say that in 1973, I was the Young Engineer of the Year in the Fox River Valley American Society of Civil Engineers. That was a long time ago, but I still don't feel that old. To say my experience has been in engineering, but I have interest outside of the engineering world in terms of reading, history, and a lot of other things. I've also participated in other community activities, coaching baseball. And with that, I will close, and we will continue with the beginning of the questions.
Thank you. Bill, I will have you answer the first question first. You will have 3 minutes. What do you feel is the most overlooked or unrecognized issue in New Richmond?
From my study of the issues in the city of New Richmond, there are quite a few issues that are important. One I would say that rises to the top for me is the issue of the sanitary landfill closure and exactly what's going to happen to that and what kind of liability it might bring to the city of New Richmond. The other issues, and some of these come from the people that I've met out as I'm door knocking and meeting people. Interesting question, does the city have a standby electrical supply for the water supply system in the event of a regional power outage? And the chances, if you follow the news at all, you'll know that the chances of a regional power outage anywhere in the United States are increasing. I have studied this issue. I've studied it in other cities too. Those would be important. There's also the issue that's coming on when we use water in our houses, whether it's in a sink, a bathtub, a toilet, wherever it might be, and that water is sent into the wastewater stream system. Every city has an issue dealing with the treatment of that wastewater because it generates a material, sludge, also known as a biosolid. And it's up to us as citizens to acknowledge this. It didn't happen because of any company. It happened because of what we do in everyday living. And the city's going to have a situation of having to deal with the biosolids coming out of its wastewater treatment system. There are various disposal methods being used now, but they will have to be looked into because this is becoming more important. We cannot discharge water directly into creeks or lakes or streams. We have to treat it, and that's a responsibility of everybody. Even if you're not an engineer, you have to have a certain understanding of what is happening and how that responsibility falls to us. At this point, I'd say those are the major issues that I have seen involved in things that will affect everyday life.
Thank you. Mike, same question. What do you feel is the most overlooked or unrecognized issue in New Richmond?
I don't know about overlooked or unrecognized. It's just balancing the needs of a growing community with a tax base that you really don't want to grow. When I talk to people, and it's interesting, you talk to various members of the council and they will say different things that people say to them. And I would say that overall, the number one conversation I have with folks has to do with the taxes that they pay. This is a challenging environment that we're in today. I think there's a lot of stresses. We have a number of referendum issues on the ballot, several of which have to do with asking for more money. Our community has needs. When my wife and I came here in the very early 80s, the population was around 4,000 people. Now it's 10 plus. And really putting down new infrastructure to handle the needs of a growing population is very expensive. And how you get that money back, and that's probably actually not right for me to say, it's not how you get the money back, it's how the money that does come back, because it's not getting the same dollars back, but to meet the needs of folks. People have interest in parks. They want to see stuff done for parks and trails. People have needs for general infrastructure, streets. We've had a lot of conversation about the compost site and picking up branches and leaves. And as somebody I have served with said, you know, we want to meet the needs of the people who live in the community. And that's really where the difficulty comes in just trying to balance that. Those are the main issues that are on the plate right now. We got awesome staff here in the city of New Richmond. You can't do what happens here without the staff we have and the hiring that's gone on and how good it's been. You know, it's interesting when you look around and you see communities that have all this upheaval, and some of it's just in Hudson. Lake Elmo's another town that has struggled with that. And I'm very protective of us not having that go on in Richmond, and it's because of the staff we have and that the council doing their work to support them. And that's really what our job is. We're policymakers. I'm not a department head. Don't call me up and ask me to go talk to the public works guys about shoveling something or whatever, because that's not what we're here for. We're here to make policy and support staff as they carry out what we make.
Would you care for an opportunity to rebut that response? You would
No,
have 2
ma'am.
minutes. You're good?
Yes.
Okay. We will move on to the next question, and I will begin with you, Mike. The library building project is on track to break ground this summer. What is your opinion of the project, And how would you rank the project in terms of priorities in the context of other city projects and initiatives? Please explain.
How would I rank it? 1A, 1B. The library has been long overdue in our community. We have awesome staff at the library. I've had a number of people have said to me over the last 2 years, we don't need a library. All library does is you go and you check out a book, and of course that's not at all, that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of what the library does. You have about 8,000 square feet over there. It's been hard getting to a point where we can do something that we can move forward with. Folks ask the question, why on earth are they talking about a library with apartments on top of it? And the fact is, it's the best economic way to do that development. It's interesting, 10 years ago, there was some thought that you could just build a new library for maybe $5 million. That number today, maybe it's $15 million. For those of you that are familiar with the school referendum issue, and you see that number, and then you think back about 15 years ago when they passed a smaller number and built buildings, that's the cost of inflation. The library serves the whole community, but particularly, there are folks who use the library who have no other options. You drive by this building sometime on a Sunday afternoon. Why are there cars sitting out here with people in them? Because they're using the Wi-Fi. Now, if you have Wi-Fi at home, you're not even thinking about that. But that person, that's the only option of a place they have to go. The programming that's done at the library, I'm just super excited that we're moving to a point where we can spread the cost out beyond the borders of the city of New Richmond, get a facility that's going to quadruple in size almost, and meet the needs going forward. But that's a tremendous building over there. You know, it's kind of, okay, it was cool to have the library in there, but we have to do something different going forward.
And Bill, I will ask you the same question. I will reread it for you. The library building project is on track to break ground this summer. What is your opinion of the project, and how would you rank the project in terms of priorities in the context of other city projects and initiatives? Please explain.
Well, I have been in the library, and I have observed that it is small. The shelves are crowded, and I can certainly concede that we need a bigger facility to serve the people. However, there are some sources will say that the libraries of the future will be smaller because of people using electronic means to access reading materials. Having said that, the issue of putting up residential units above a municipal facility, I've been involved with projects like that before on the engineering and design teams. And when done properly, they have worked if they address the needs and requests of the citizens. Strictly from the footprint that is needed, I can see where a larger facility is definitely needed. There's no question about that. I've walked around this particular facility, and one of the things I wondered was whether or not, I simply do not know this because I've not been privy to this information, whether or not the matter of expanding this facility. If you look at it, there's two different architectural schemes, the original one plus the rear facility where the children's library is with the cupola. Given some enterprising architectural skills, one could double the size of that library easily on that given site and still make it an attractive facility. I understand that, and I've had some concerns addressed to me from people who said that they're concerned about a residential unit on top of a public facility. As I say, I've worked with those before, and I have seen them work if they address the needs of the citizens, both at the city itself and the immediate neighborhood. I don't know if that has been looked into in this particular case.
Would you care for time to offer a rebuttal?
Thank you. I think one of the issues that Bill just brought up is one of the things that folks have struggled with when they said we don't need libraries in the future because of electronic means. That's totally discounting the amount of programming that goes on over there that folks you have to have space for. You gotta have a place for people to get together. And the vision for this library is really to be an anchor spot for the community, and the benefit of putting it where it is what its impact can be on downtown. That's the flat out end of it. Libraries in this century are not what they were. For those communities that were fortunate enough to get libraries that were provided by what's the family's name? I can't think of it right now, but the very rich
Carnegie.
man, there it is, that donated the money for libraries to be built, that doesn't exist today. And so if we are going to have a library that meets the needs of the community and the way people need their needs met, we have to do something bigger. The other thing I want to say is, and this is the one thing that's hard, you've been in town 15 months, that issue has been completely examined about adding on to this building. The question's already been answered, and a lot of credit to city staff and the council. We took this one step at a time to determine, did we have something there we could use? And the determination was made after an exhaustive study, no, we have to do something different. Putting apartment units on it really gives it, a market rate apartments with a great developer, makes it much more economically viable.
And you may have 2 minutes for a response if you would care.
I'm sorry, say again?
Would you like 2 minutes to respond?
Yes, I would to that. The issue of putting apartments, like I say, on top of it, I've had people address a concern about that to me. But again, I've worked on facilities of that type where it has been successful for both the city and the people using it. The lifespan of a library has got to be on the order of 50 years. I mean, you don't build these facilities to last 10, 15, 20 years like a developer might do a shopping center. And the issue of the cost incurred in doing this, again, I don't know whether that long-term cost has been addressed. I would look into that to see further what exactly has been addressed with the issue of the library. The needs of people to use a library in terms of electronics for people coming in to use the Wi-Fi, that is something I had not heard of before, to be honest with you. And I just don't see where that many people would be coming into the library just to use the Wi-Fi. But the issue of having a new facility is an important one. One thing I would look into, and I don't know the layout, I've asked it and I haven't been able to get it, is whether or not the parking facilities would be, of the tenants, would be separate from those of the library users. I think that would be an important issue so the two are not conflated.
Thank you. Bill, we will start with you for the next question.
Okay.
What do you believe the most pressing issue or concern as it relates to public safety is in our community? And what steps do you think can be taken to address this issue or concern?
My wife and I have found New Richmond to be a very safe city. By contrast, I would say look at the city of Minneapolis in 2023. Within the city of Minneapolis proper, not including the suburbs of St. Paul, there's a car stolen every hour. One of the surprising things in moving back to Wisconsin was to find out that my car insurance went down 45%. I'm only 10 miles from the St. Croix River. But the issue of what's happening in Minnesota versus what's happening here, to me, struck home with that. We have found it to be a safe city. I think I've ridden every mile of streets in this city. I do the MS 150 bike ride, for any of those familiar with that, the 150-mile bike ride in June. So when I was training last year, I rode it. By the way, there's a lot of hills in New Richmond in case you haven't walked or driven a bike through the city. But the streets, I've had no concern driving the streets, going out my bike any time of night or day. I don't know that I'd say the same thing back across the river in Minnesota today. So we have found it to be a very safe city. I can't think of any issue other than maintaining a very consistent approach to law enforcement in the city.
Thank you. Mike, same question. I will read it again. What do you believe the most pressing issue or concern as it relates to public safety is in our community? And what steps do you think can be taken to address this issue or concern?
It's a real straightforward answer I'm going to give you. It's staffing. Hiring police officers. What has happened in America since 2020, I think we can put a pin in the wall relative to the calendar, relative to that date, trying to hire not just police officers, but the brave men and women who staff our fire department, our emergency medical services, I think that in the last 15 years, the number of homicides that have occurred within our city limits might be more than what occurred in the history of New Richmond prior to that time. I've had a long belief that if folks don't feel safe living here, nothing else matters. If you're not safe and we have great parks, it doesn't matter to you. Safety, public safety is the highest priority of government. And again, we might say 1A, 1B, that type of thing. What the city of New Richmond has done, we're competing with law enforcement agencies just to talk about law enforcement in the area. The sheriff's department is short-staffed. They're actually looking to hire more. Neighboring communities, and then we have this fight with benefits. I mean, that's where the conflict is. Can you provide enough to get quality individuals to come and apply here? Folks, in the city of New Richmond, we are now hiring individuals and sending them to school. 20 years ago, you didn't have to do that. You had an opening for a law enforcement job, you'd have many applicants. Today, you're actually looking to create a qualified individual. You start with kind of, if I can say, the raw material, the character of the individual you're dealing with, and then you send them to school and they come back and work for you. But that's what's happened. We have a very progressive police department. Folks have supported K-9. I think this stuff is great. But you have to be vigilant in taking care of the folks who do those jobs. Fire department's getting harder to staff. Emergency medical services are harder to staff. And that's why it's an issue at the state to provide money to communities so that they can hire benefits to hire folks who do fire and EMS work. So staffing is the number one issue with public safety, making sure you got plenty of qualified individuals who can do the job.
Bill, would you like to offer a rebuttal?
Yes, I would like to offer. My wife and I have a son-in-law who is a policeman down in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we are very much attuned to the angst that exists within the police departments of every city today. It's something we think about literally every day, about his safety. And having talked to him, we understand the need to get qualified people and the difficulty in getting qualified people. I know our neighboring city, Minneapolis, is authorized to have like 761 policemen. They're down around 350. This is an issue that must be done. It will encompass both the pay levels, but recruiting the correct people. Whether it be ex-military, people who are used to that type of thing, or already have been trained in those issues. These are things that will have to continue to be looked into.
Thank you. Mike, 2 minutes.
I think that's awesome. Bill's got a son that works for a police department, and I mean that sincerely. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You guys did some good stuff there. It's a noble profession for those individuals who are willing to put their lives. And you know, the story we saw, and I'm sorry, 6 weeks ago over in the Burnsville area, you know, there are folks who think somehow that can't happen here. And what we have learned is that crime knows no limits. What we used to think about New Richmond years ago, sleepy little town, nothing ever happens here, we have learned over the years that it's encroaching. So I think it's tremendous. You've got somebody in your family who serves. Just everything we can do to help support those folks who keep our community safe, not just police, fire, EMS. It needs to be just a number one focus.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to the next question, and Mike, you will be the first answer on this one.
Didn't I just go first?
You did not.
Oh, okay. I guess you're right. Sorry, I lost myself. I was just trying to see if I could throw you off, Monica.
I made notes.
Very good. You're a librarian. Why not?
What action steps do you feel the city could take to help existing businesses grow, attract new businesses to New Richmond, or otherwise improve the local economy?
Wow, I feel like I'm standing on stage in some Eastern Seaboard town and we've got a presidential debate going on. That's not an easy answer. I think philosophically, regulations are a good place to start. The things that government puts into place, perhaps sometimes in the way of businesses, makes it harder for them to succeed. I think about, and I'll get to, I just want to say, I think about housing developers. You know, it's really easy for government bodies to put down all these rules, and we understand that every time you put a rule in there, the end user's got to pay for that. We have to decide what kind of community we want to be. We got some awesome businesses here. People will talk about Stillwater, they'll talk about Hudson. We're not that, we don't have the benefit of the river or some of the things that those communities have. But I think things that we can do, like the library project with the living units on top of it, bringing folks closer to downtown helps. I think having the community events that we have that draw people into our downtown, the Chamber of Commerce has done a good job with the events that they've had. Those things make people want to come to New Richmond, and businesses to thrive have to have customers, right? So in some sense, government's got to get out of the way. In another sense, we have to do things that support of activities that make people want to come here. Have good streets, have good infrastructure, have proper housing for people to live in, have an industrial base. I think those are the things that we can do to help that the most.
Wonderful. And Bill, I will ask you the same question. What action steps do you feel the city could take to help existing businesses grow, attract new business to New Richmond, or otherwise improve the local economy?
Based on my experience on having worked in industrial parks and in economic development, the engineering involved, one of the things that I think is very important is for a governmental organization to basically stay out of the way of the development of the private sector, to be very conscious of any rules or regulations they may pass that would inhibit the development of an industrial park, for example, or to look what type of businesses they do want to come in. But the attractiveness of a certain area, first of all, has to do with the living in the area where the employees would have to live. But the issue of the government not obstructing or not imposing their wishes onto a business that may be contrary to what other cities may impose or rule. We have to let the private sector make the decisions themselves as to what they want to be. And I'm not talking about bringing in polluting industries. We're not going to bring in a copper smelting company to New Richmond. Bring a lot of business, but it wouldn't be very good for the environment. But the idea that I've seen over the years of having the government stay out of the way, letting the private sector do what it has to do to finance, to build, when it comes to, for example, building permits, to permitting the idea of letting a company develop, but if there's some objection to the physical appearance of a company, working with landscape architects to take care of that type of problem that may exist with a building. These things can be done. I have seen them done.
Mike, would you care to offer a rebuttal?
Sure. I think it's interesting. Both of us were asked in the newspaper about if we would support the city continuing to spend public money in terms of private development. I'm going to I'll shorten it up that way. And, I think it's interesting. There's a response that says, no, we shouldn't do that. Well, one of the things we could do to help our downtown, and in fact we did, is BB Lofts. That project doesn't happen unless the city of New Richmond got involved to make it happen. And folks don't necessarily understand the economics of it, but the city is going to get all of the public money invested there. And as much as I love the architecture of the old building, I didn't like the fact that we had a building that had a bedbug problem. You had an infant living there at the time. Folks were told they had to move because of this project happening. It was unbelievably substandard housing. And if the city wouldn't have got involved, it's possible that building's still standing and you would have folks in New Richmond who are afraid to walk the blocks in front of that because what was going on there, the number of police calls, et cetera. The Dairy Queen property. If the city hadn't got involved there, again, another project, we got this beautiful green space right now. But if the city hadn't gotten involved, it's very possible that old building would still be sitting there and folks would drive by and say, so those are the things that help bring people into downtown to make the downtown. So sometimes the private sector needs some public help. And that's what we've tried to do. There's a high bar to clear, but sometimes that's the only way that happens.
Care to respond?
I believe from my understanding of the situation, what Mr. Mantella has talked about has brought two different things together. As I understood the question, It had to do more with industrial and economic development as opposed to building an apartment building. I'm looking at the idea that an apartment building per se will not bring in, for example, manufacturing jobs or service jobs, at least not at the standard that a company moving in. I'm looking at as I've ridden through the areas of the industrial parks, there's a lot of space that still could be developed. This is an attractive city for people to live in. But as I said, the issues of the government, if it's a public-private type of joint venture where the government may purchase the land and get it involved into the hands of an industry, that's one thing. But the idea of dictating how a particular facility might look is something that the government has to stand by and stay away from.
Okay.
And just for clarity, your question was about retail, was it not?
The question was, what action steps do you feel the city could take to help existing businesses grow, attract new businesses to New Richmond, or otherwise improve the local economy? But we will move on to the next question, and Bill, you will have an opportunity to answer first. In your opinion, regarding the current quantity and quality of the parks and trails, what is your opinion regarding the current quantity and quality of the parks and trails system in New Richmond? And what is your vision for maintaining or improving the parks and trails system in the future?
That's an interesting question. As I mentioned to you, and doing my bike riding, preparing for the MS-150, I think I've ridden every street and trail in the city of New Richmond on my bike. And I found it to be very attractive. I understand there's going to be another new trail built out along County Highway K going out to that subdivision, because that County K is not a fun road to ride your bike on, I will tell you that much. But the other trails and roads that I've ridden throughout the city, to me, have been very attractive. And I have found the new one along County A out on the west side of town, although I wish they'd turn it back and bring it back toward the east. Perhaps that's in the books, I don't know. But what I have seen to date in terms of the parks and facilities have been very attractive. We've got the 2 baseball fields there right on Knowles. I mean, you're not going to be playing, Babe Ruth or higher baseball along those fields, but they're for the kids. And the trails and the parks, like I say, to me, are sufficient at this point, but they're going to have to grow as the population grows too. But it's been very attractive, and I have found it welcome.
Same question. I will repeat it for you. What is your opinion regarding the current quantity and quality of the parks and trails system in New Richmond? And what is your vision for maintaining or improving the parks and trails system in the future?
Well, I think we're off to a great start. Yeah, New Richmond's, the city wasn't just founded 10 years ago, but when you consider that the trail development has been exponential in more recent years, I think we've got great stuff going there. It's interesting, and this is one of the interesting things about serving, is you'll have some people who say, need more trails, and we got other people saying, we don't want you to spend any more money on trails. It's a balanced approach. I heard there was a comment was made that at one time, I think, the county was considering a bike path that would go basically from New Richmond all the way to Stillwater. And if you're a person that rides, like Bill does, or like I used to, the idea of getting on that and going like they have down by Madison, hey, that's really cool. That stuff's not free. And so really it becomes an issue of balancing financially where you want to be and meeting the needs of the most people that you can. We got great parks in town. We have to maintain those. In terms of looking for more park space right now, I know with new developments, the way the ordinances are written, there's more green space. But we have to decide where the priority is going to be when it comes to trails. I know we're talking about paving some area of trail. Really need to kind of keep our focus on the area that gets the biggest thrust. I think about, Bill mentioned County Road A. We got a tremendous letter from an individual who lives out there, who uses the trail for their running and their training and just how great it is. And I think for some folks, if you're never on those trails, you don't understand what it means to the people who can use them. So we need to have a focus there, balanced with our economic ability to do that.
Bill, would you care for an opportunity to offer a rebuttal?
Yeah, well, it's not in the form of a rebuttal necessarily, but is it?
A response.
To a response. Yeah, the issue is that the recreational opportunities afforded to the outside are necessary. Among other things, Americans just don't get enough exercise. And things like trails and parks are one of the facilities that will encourage people to get out. As I say, in my particular case, where I've ridden everywhere in New Richmond, I've seen them to be a very good system that do encourage. I see a lot of people out riding and walking and running. But it will have to be done. It does take money, that is one thing, to be maintained. And this is something that has to be recognized within the public sector, that even if you don't use it, you will be contributing via your tax money to the maintenance of these facilities. But that is important. Maintenance is something that is so commonly forgotten, both in the public and private sectors. And it's important to keep these facilities up. I'll just tell you quickly, we rode back last year on the MS 150 over in Minnesota, and the trail was so bad, I wrote a letter to the DNR complaining about it, and I found out I wasn't the only one. And I did sign it as a registered engineer too, so they knew that I was what I was talking about when I complained about the quality of the trail. The qualities of the trails around here are very good. And it looks like they have been maintained to date, and I hope they keep them that way.
And if you desire, you may have 2 minutes.
I don't think I have anything to add. Yes, you can let the record indicate that I didn't have anything else to say, Ron.
Wonderful. The next question, we will start with you, Mike. If elected, how would you help ensure that the city is fiscally responsible and maintains or improves its financial position?
Keep doing what I've been doing. I think it's interesting. The Republican Party of St. Croix County has published a list of individuals, conservative individuals, that they are recommending in the election. And Bill's name is under for the Alderman District 6 here in Richmond, and you can look at their Facebook page to see that. I've got some folks that I serve with who would say, Mike, there's somebody more fiscally conservative than you are. They'd probably be shocked to hear that. I think that it's interesting that when you construct what it is the city's financial position is going to be, you have to start with kind of the right raw material. In this case, I'm going to talk about staff. You have to have good staff. You got to have good policy, then you got to have good staff. The city has unbelievable staff right now. Our credit rating, for example, was just recently raised from AA3 to AA2. That's because of sound fiscal policy. This discussion people will talk about, I've got money left on my credit card, I can still spend it. Well, presently in the state of Wisconsin, the city of New Richmond has the ability to borrow $62 million. You want to call that's our credit limit. As of 2022, we're sitting right around 17 million. I don't look at unused money as, oh, let's go do some projects. I look at it as, that's great. Less debt equals better financial stability going forward. The needs of a growing community are tremendous, and we're really talking about infrastructure. So I think it's having that like-mindedness to be able to ask the hard questions. I actually remember a number of years ago that we were talking about borrowing money. And I asked our person who's from the financial consultant, and I said, well, what if we borrow for 15 years? And he's like, well, what would that be? And somebody else chimed in, well, what would that cost us? And it was like going to save the city a couple $100,000. So that's what we did. We adopted a policy of taking on shorter-term debt to pay it back quicker. That's really what you can do, is being able to ask the hard questions. You have to understand the financial side of that. You can't just completely rely on the experts. You got to know enough to be dangerous to ask the right questions. So basically, keep doing what we're doing. Have the staff that we have, because they do a tremendous job.
We'll repeat the same question for you.
I ask you, please repeat it.
No problem. If elected, how would you help ensure that the city is fiscally responsible and maintains or improves its financial position?
First, I'd like to point out that running for a seat in the city council is a nonpartisan position. It makes no difference, and you do not run as a Democrat, as a Republican, as a marijuana party, as a Green Party, or anything. I am fully funding my campaign by myself, with contributions from friends, neighbors, and relatives. The Republican Party is not putting a plug nickel into my campaign. So I'd like to address that issue right from the beginnings. Next, in my study of the issues within the city of New Richmond, one of the things that I would think would help the city going forward in the future would be an increase in the transparency and openness of the city council and the city government and its dealings. I believe that's an essential element of government, is to be open and transparent to all the citizens, to communicate clearly to the citizens what things are happening and why they are happening and when they're going to happen and what the consequences are to the citizens of that city.
Mike, would you care for 2 minutes to respond?
Please. Bill, since you brought it up, you happened to tell somebody when you were out collecting signatures that the Republican Party of St. Croix County asked you to run. So you're right, this is a nonpartisan. And when they asked me about it, I kind of laughed. I said, this is a nonpartisan deal. Why would the St. Croix County Republican Party get involved in the city of New Richmond? This is nonpartisan. I brought it up because you brought it up. You've told people. I'm looking at their webpage. They're doing a fundraiser for various candidates that are running, and there you are in the picture. So maybe they haven't given you any money, but there you are. I don't take money from anybody because I don't want to owe anybody. I'm here to represent the people of New Richmond. I don't ask for funds. I don't take them from organizations. So we'll say that right there. You talk about transparency. You said in the paper, specifically disclosure of the facts in the fire department controversy. For some reason, a couple of 100 pages of legal documents that are public, you're not aware of. For all the hearings that have been held, you're not aware of. And the fact that a lawsuit's been filed by somebody who supports you, who's named me personally, as well as our city administrator and our current fire chief. So you have somebody who supports you who's actually suing the city of New Richmond. That's what you're talking about. There's nothing hidden. The Police and Fire Commission is not a function of the city council. They've handled that. That's my rebuttal.
You may have 2 minutes to respond, Bill.
Yes, I would like to respond to this. Again, I have taken no financing from anybody other than my own pocket, friends, neighbors, and family. The issue of transparency, as has been broadcast to me by numerous people that I have spoken to, is a problem in the city of New Richmond. The people are not properly informed of issues. For example, I'll bring up what is now called the manure digester, which should not be addressed as that issue. It is a biosolids facility disposal. But people out there still think it's a manure digester facility. I would submit that if they're still thinking that, it's because the city has not properly communicated to them exactly what the situation is on that. That the company that was trying to develop that from Denmark has pulled out of the country. They tried to develop one in Minnesota that I got involved in too. I was asked to consult on from the foundation viewpoint. And I know they've pulled out of the country. But these issues that to explain to me, by the way, I'd also like to bring up that in years past, Mr. Montello has said he was a Republican too. So maybe we're on the same boat, Mike.
I'm not a member of a party.
You said you were a Republican. That's all I'll address.
I never said that to anybody.
We'll keep our comments limited to the time allotted.
So the issue, but these issues, you have to remember that it's nonpartisan. What Mr. Montello has brought up will have nothing to do with my effect to analyze deeply both the financial and the political impacts of the decisions we would have to make as a city council.
Thank you. We will move on to the next question. And Bill, I will start with you. Many students continue to be concerned about the availability and quality of wireless internet service in New Richmond. What steps do you think could be taken to address this issue?
You mean 4G or 5G? But I'm not certain the context in which you mean. At the school facility itself or throughout the whole city?
Throughout the community, internet access in general.
As I understand it, part of the problem with internet access, one of it is financial, whether or not people can afford to pay for the internet service. I mean, that's taking place in various parts of the country, particularly in isolated rural areas, where there's been discussions of how to bring those internet in. We've had no problem when we moved in getting internet service at all. I mean, it was there immediately when we wanted it, and I have not seen that difficulty. If it is a problem, first of all, I don't think it's the government's job to step in and deliver that service. It's a private sector facility. that comes out. If the government has to work with and cooperate with the companies that do provide internet service, then those steps may have to be taken. But I have not yet seen an in-depth study to say is it geographically, is it economically? I think there has to be more addressed to that problem to find out how they feel there's a lack of internet service. I don't think there's a lack of internet service in any of the schools where they're attending every day.
Thank you. Mike, same question. I will reread it. Many students continue to be concerned about the availability of quality wireless internet service in New Richmond. What steps do you think could be taken to address this issue?
Well, I think it's happening right now. A few years ago, the council had a special meeting where we invited members, internet providers in the area. I think there was 4 different companies that came and talked to us about what it would cost to wire the city. Since that time, apparently, federal funds have dropped into the system, and we have seen not one, but at least 2 companies wanting to run wireless in our city. And some people are like, no, they're not digging up my yard again. So the problem's definitely getting better. There could be a situation in underserved areas where it's going to take a little bit of public support to cover that. You can't just rely, because the whole thing with the private market is that's an awesome tool, but the private market generally doesn't go where they can't get a return on investment. That's the job of public funds. So I think the situation in Richmond is getting dramatically better. I think there's new technologies. At some point, are we going to have basically Wi-Fi routers, as you could imagine, on light poles going through the city of New Richmond to provide, I understand the technology exists, not practical today, but to provide internet for everybody, regardless of what their financial status is. So I think it's just continuing to be open to those technologies that are out there, understanding what the needs are, and then meeting those.
Would you like to offer a response?
No, I have no response to that.
Thank you. We will move to the next question, and Mike, I will begin with you. If you are elected, what would be your priorities when it comes to the annual budget, and how will you ensure taxes are spent wisely to benefit the community?
Well, I will tell you, every year, this last 8 years, with the exception of this last fall, because I wasn't on the council for 6 months after we sold our home and moved, the council has been very, very focused on directing staff who comes to us not with a wish list of stuff jammed into the budget, but really kind of taking a hard view of it first, and then the council gets it and looks for ways that we can wring out waste. And I think that's what bothers most of us when it comes to government spending. It isn't that there's government projects, it's when money is wasted in ways that doesn't give a return to individuals. And I'm not talking about necessarily monetarily, right? You spend money on a park, that's an investment. You spend money on a library, that's an investment. People can get a return from that. So, but I think that it's really that, starting with that philosophy, that we're not looking to spend money just to spend money. You know that in some branches of government, people say, well, this is my budget. I only spent this much. Hurry, we got to use that so we get that budget back next year. We don't budget that way in the city of New Richmond. And I can tell you from 35 years ago when I was on the council, that's not the way it was done. Department heads got to be very protective of their budgets, and sometimes it wasn't for the benefit of the taxpayers as a whole. I'll just say it that way. So you have to start with the ability that you're going to go in, you've got staff giving you the right data, and you're willing to ask the hard questions and say, do we have to do this? Is there a great return for what we're doing? You can do things to do things, but we need to be doing things that we know that's what people want.
Bill, I will ask you the same question, and I will reread it for you. If you are elected, what would your priorities be when it comes to the annual budget, and how will you ensure that the taxes are spent wisely to benefit the community?
If elected to this position, among the things I would drive very hard for would be transparency and openness. I think that the citizenry has to have an input into what the spending would be, because it impacts your taxes. If you can't have an input and understand and have a clear explanation of how your money is being spent and what it's being spent on, it'd be difficult for you to have a sense that that the city was considering your position in this. In the budgetary process, I just suspect that in much of government, city, county, and state level, that there's not the open transparency that there should be in this. And it's something that I've, even years ago, working across Wisconsin, that I was always concerned about. I've made a lot of presentations to city councils and county boards in the course of doing my work, and I often wondered how transparent they were in taking the analyses we did and the financial impacts of our engineering and putting it out to the people so that the people understood. Now, that's not saying that people always agree with what is being done, because within this room, we could probably never get full agreement of everybody that something is necessary or should be done. But if the people are not told about this, clearly communicated to them with transparency and openness, I can foresee difficulties.
Would you care for 2 minutes for rebuttal?
Thank you. Citizen input. We have a number of public budget meetings. All the council, the mayor, staff is available to answer questions. At some point, it is incumbent on folks to come. We have meetings, the average public meeting that we have, we don't get attendance like this. We might get one person, we might get 4 person. We advertise, we put it on, we stream it, it's available for people to watch later. So the idea of transparency, we're not doing anything in the dark. Unfortunately, too many people don't care about the minutia of what we do. And I get it with citizenry. That's not hammering on anybody. That's the reality. It's not because we hide the information. The amount of public meetings we have about things. So to say that people, don't have an opportunity to do input. And Bill, I got to tell you this. You decided in December to run for city council. I haven't seen you at a meeting yet. So we have meetings. We invite the public. You're interested in city government. You want to run. You should be here so you know what's going on.
Okay. You may have 2 minutes to respond.
I have no further comment.
Wonderful. We will move on to the next question. And gentlemen, we're up to question number 9. So we're doing well. Bill, I will start with you. In one word, why should the people of New Richmond vote for you?
I will bring a fresh approach to the works of the city council. Over the years, as I said, when I've made presentations, I've often wondered why there aren't more engineers on city councils and county boards. Much of the work of a city involves capital projects, equipment, finance. I have experience and training in all of these areas. For example, I have read the 2023 report on the landfill. It's 487 pages long. I understand that report. I understand exactly what they're talking about in that. I would bring a different perspective, I believe, to the city council, with respect to my experience in municipal projects, capital projects, and the engineering properties, and also the finance. In my own company, I started a company in 1981. Within a few years, we grew to 8 offices in 3 states with a staff of 90. I understand the issues of hiring, training, maintaining staff, compensating them properly in accordance with the market, providing information and services to my clients. One thing about an engineer, other people can make mistakes. Weatherman can be wrong 50% of the time, still have his job. Engineers do something wrong and we get sued. So I'm very conscious of doing things properly, looking at things very deeply and analyzing them. And I feel I can bring that service to the City Council of New Richmond.
I will ask you the same question, Mike. In one word, why should the people of New Richmond vote for you?
I feel if I just give you one word, I'm getting cheated. But I'm going to answer the question the way you asked it. Honesty. You asked for one word. I'm going to tell you honesty.
You do have an opportunity for a rebuttal if you would like 2 minutes.
No, I choose not to.
Okay.
Can I
Thank you.
rebut the non-rebuttal?
Of course you can. You may have 2 minutes.
I just, Bill, I value what engineers do. They obviously play a vital role in what goes on here in the city. But I do have to contradict something you said. You said if the engineers get something wrong, they get sued. Well, we had an engineer signed off on a project on the west side of town. They're long gone, and the city is stuck with the responsibility of fixing a sewer line that an engineer signed off on. So to say that, there's a high standard for engineers, and I should tell you, I have 2 of them as sons, and I am the son of one. It's a very high standard. But to say that somehow, they do it, they never make mistakes, obviously, they're human beings. So I wanted to say that. And I think the ability to ask the hard question, to be able to attend meetings, now it's more than one word. I've missed 3 meetings since 2016. That's not just council meetings, that's committee meetings. I've missed 3 meetings since 2016. I'm here, I do the work, I respond to people in an honest way, and I tell you, there's not a person in the city of New Richmond that I've told something to and then came up here and sat in the dais and said something different.
We are at our last question, and Mike, I will start with you. What is one positive thing you respect about your opponent?
First of all, Bill's a veteran. I respect that. So I'm going to tell you more than one thing. The fact that I didn't know this, he's got a son in law enforcement. This may surprise some people. We live about 12 doors apart from each other. I've never seen Bill before. So I wish I knew him better. You seem like a super upstanding guy. That's awesome. And the intent tonight is to debate issues, not people. And I think Bill is a man of integrity. I actually watched your YouTube video. That's really cool. Bill's served in the armed forces. He obviously has a big family. He loves his wife. He's still married. He's got kids. He's got grandkids. I think all that's great. He wants to live in a community that offers positive things. I think that that's good. And I'll tell you, the most important thing that I respect about Bill is he wants to be involved. We don't have enough people at every level, quality folks, that want to be involved. And we need more of that.
Thank you. Bill, I will ask you the same question. What is one positive thing that you respect about your opponent?
One of the things that I've learned about Mike Montello is I just started learning this in the fairly recent past, the fact that he has been contributing to the public sector in terms of his work in the city council and various committees. And it takes a stick-to-itiveness to keep doing that. And you don't just do it once or twice or for a year or two, but you keep at it and keep developing the experience to go with it, and that he has done.
Wonderful. Would either of you care for time for a response? Okay.
Thank you.
That means we have moved on to our closing statements, and per our coin flip at the beginning, Bill, you will offer your closing statement. You will have 2 minutes, and then Mike, you will be able to finish us up. So it is time now for closing statements.
To recap, as I said, I've been involved in hundreds of municipal projects across the state of Wisconsin. I've made presentations to city councils and county boards, and I always kind of wondered why they didn't have more experienced people who dealt with capital projects, who knew the engineering involved, who knew the finance involved, who knew how the people involved. And that is something that I feel that I would bring to the city with a new perspective, a new look, a new face, if you will. I've not served, my only 2 public employers ever were the U.S. Army and the one summer I worked with Wisconsin DOT when I was in graduate school. Other than time, I've been in the private sector. But I am driven. I am driven to succeed. I was driven to succeed in my time in the Army. I was driven to exceed in my time in my original employer. I was driven to succeed when I had my own company. I would bring the same concentration of service and the drive to succeed and be of service to the people of New Richmond. I feel that I can help in giving a good, honest, transparent, open line of communication of the things that the city is doing and what the city needs to do to grow, to be successful in the future.
Thank you. And Mike, if you would like, you may begin your closing statement.
I want to finish something I started at my opening statement. Some of the other things I've done in the community, I've been the treasurer for 2 different churches and the local Red Cross. I was a youth sports coach and board member on youth sports boards. I've been the voice of the Tigers. Some people recognize my voice more than they do the mustache. For 37 years and counting, Lord willing. I've emceed local event fundraisers, and I've announced parades. I've served on, or currently serve on, the Ambulance Board, the Fire Board, the Police and Fire Commission, Public Safety, Public Works, Planning Commission, Library Board, Forward in Richmond, Historic Preservation, Airport Commission, Board of Review, and I was elected as council president during this 8 years that I've been around now 5 times. I think the greatest challenge that our city government had since I got elected in 2016 was COVID. I remember managing a business, and when COVID was at the beginning, we thought the world was coming to an end. That was an unbelievable challenge. It's a bit of pride that we were able to navigate that the way that we did. Folks, there were some folks who thought that the city should have had a citywide mask mandate. So in other words, the police would fine you if you were caught without a mask. I did not support that. I had an individual, in terms of being a strong voice, while I've been serving, somebody had proposed that we should adopt a wheel tax in New Richmond. And people would have to pay an extra $15 a year, for example, when they license their cars, and just what good that would do. I'm all about accountability, meeting integrity. In 2016, when I first got on the council, our first work session, we used to meet downstairs. At the meeting, I said, folks, we got to take this upstairs so people can get here. We got to push the time back so more people can get here. That's what my deal has been. I just want to leave you with this. When Bill sent his letter out to everybody, he's got a little sentence in here. It says, I believe I have the perspective to help keep New Richmond on the path of fiscal responsibility, prudent development, and public safety with an appreciation of the need for accessibility, transparency, and accountability. Bill, thanks. You wrote that for me. That's a joke. I feel the same way that you do. We're not different in that regard. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. Thank you for the work that you did, Monica. It's tremendous. Let's go democracy.
Go democracy. Thank you both so much for being here. Yes, you may. So we will now take a short break, and we will reconvene at approximately 7:15 for session 2, where we will hear from the candidates for mayor.
Very important. Democracy is not rule.
Love that term.
minutes now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I saw it there, like, sitting, but I knew it was hidden, so.
As we start to prepare for session 2, I will invite you to begin working your way back to your chairs. And during this time, before we get started with our candidates, I will invite our city clerk, Michelle Scanlon, to give us some detailed information on how to register to vote and any information that viewers may want to know about voting.
Good evening. Thank you, Monica. I just want to share a couple, sorry, I'm going to be in the back of the room because I want to share a couple things on the screen. This is the City of New Richmond's website, if you haven't visited there. One of my favorite pages is here, the election and voter information page. So for those of you, I know some of you here are not city residents, I encourage you to reach out to your own clerk with questions. Early voting, in-person voting started today across the state of Wisconsin, so certainly reach out to your clerk to find out where and when you can vote. If you are here in the city, you'll find all of the information on this page. Additionally, you will find sample ballots. There are 6 different ballots for this spring election. I do have them actually on the table over on the east side of the room, along with a map if you're unsure of what district you are in, along with some information on the referendums that you'll find on all of the ballots as well. So I encourage you to visit that. This also has a link to a really great resource, which is the My Vote Wisconsin page. So this is where you can see your sample ballot in advance of an election, regardless of where you live, and find out where to vote and all of that. But please reach out to me if you have any questions, or your clerk. There is a recording of this meeting. You can find that on the City of New Richmond YouTube channel, or you can go to our meeting portal, which I'm happy to help you find as well. So please reach out.
Thank you, Michelle. Welcome, candidates for mayor. We are welcoming Jim Zukowski and Fred Horn. Every time, I'm going to trip over it. Both of whom are running for mayor. Now, this session will work very similarly to the first session, where each candidate will be given 3 minutes to answer, and then I will offer a 2-minute rebuttal if desired. We did also do a coin flip at the back of the room just before taking the dais, and Jim won that one. And Jim has opted to open first. So I will once again remind the audience that if you could refrain from clapping, booing, cheering, any large gestures. And then we have high school students who will be timekeeping. The yellow card when it goes up means you have 1 minute left. The red card means your time is up. Okay, so I will allow Jim to begin with your opening statement, and you will have 2 minutes.
I was alderman for 28 years and the mayor the last 2 years. I ran for mayor 2 years ago after Mayor Horn asked me to run. He said you could do as much as you want or as little as you want. I took that challenge to do more. First, I wanted to make sure that our police and fire departments have the tools to continue being first-class operations, which they are. Also, the other departments such as Public Works, Utilities, Parks, and Civic Center staff keep on operating at a high level, which they have been doing. They are very customer-oriented. Also, that our library project moves along smoothly. We should have groundbreaking in June, hopefully. Having the title of mayor has given me access to state and federal resources. I have personally talked to Governor Evers twice and Senator Tammy Baldwin for the support for the Freedom Park Center, which is for veterans, seniors who built our community and our youth. Through these contacts, I'm applying for $1.7 million to complete the Freedom Park Center. I received letters of support from 5 state representatives, 2 senators, Senator Baldwin and Tom Tiffany, our congressmen, which have been submitted to the Department of Administration for approval for our grant request of $1.7 million. I've been working with the legislators for the last year. I also support economic development, because our business climate in New Richmond is a lot better and in Wisconsin than it is in Minnesota. We are business friendly here. What we have to do is get land here so that we are ready for businesses coming to New Richmond. We have to find some way of doing that.
And your
More
time is up.
businesses can mean good paying jobs and lower taxes.
We're going to move on to Fred, and you have 2 minutes for an opening statement.
All right, so Jim and I have served together on the council for, I don't know, 27, 28, 29 years. I was alderman for 17 years, mayor for 12. I was also on the county board for 6 years. Jim and I also worked at Moore even before all of that, so we've known each other for decades. Served 5 years. I served 10 years on the New Richmond Fire Department. We've heard from the others talking about need for volunteers, need for emergency services. I became a fireman at age 50, state certified, went through all of that training. Prior to that, I was also an EMT for a short period of time. So we've all given back to our community. I'll say we both love our community. We want to continue giving back and being a part and involved in our community. We want younger people to get involved in our community. So we applaud all of that. You know, as you become a little more experienced in life, you become more mentors for our young people. We're not going to be in these positions forever. So, well, we had a bridge project. I also have worked as mayor with Governor Scott Walker. I've been down to the Capitol several times on that project. Jim and I have been to Washington, D.C. for that project. So we've all worked with our U.S. senators, our congressional representatives, and the governors to get things done. That's the role of the mayor. That's doing your job.
So much like the first session, I have a list of 10 questions, and we will alternate. We will begin with Fred for the first question. 3 minutes per answer, and then an opportunity for a 2-minute rebuttal from each of you, although you don't need to take all of that time. I will stop us at either the end of 10 questions or approximately an hour, whichever comes first. So, Fred, what do you think is New Richmond's most pressing issue, and how do you think we should address this issue as a community, and what ideas do you have for solving or addressing it?
I think, so kind of what I wrote up in the papers, I think the city needs to get more back to the basics, doing what services cities should be doing. And, you know, I'm not a big government guy, so if you're looking for government to have all the answers and to do all the projects and do everything, I'm probably not your guy. I think we need to work together, and it really gets down into, you know, when you have a cost of the project, like the library, you know, how do you pay for this equitably from the people who are using that? So in a lot of projects that face the city of New Richmond, you know, the service area around the city of New Richmond is typically half city population and half townships. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that Jim and I have debated, discussed, and never crossed. We've always, like I said, many times we've gone down and have refreshments at a local refreshment stand afterwards to make sure that things have remained friendly, that we may disagree on policies or how to do something, but it's never personal. So, but the biggest thing, I guess, to answer the question, emergency services, making sure that we have good police, good fire, good ambulance. I know that was referenced earlier. Getting volunteers to do these things is getting tougher and tougher and tougher. Police is a terrible, the way policing is becoming, and not policing, but it's the way the issues and stuff, it's very tough to be a police officer. They need to know that we support them. Firemen, we need every fireman that we can get. We need to support our firemen. These are tough jobs. Same with the emergency services, the EMTs, the paramedics. These are tough jobs. You deal with a lot of tough stuff. Support those people.
Thank you. I will offer Jim the same question. What do you think is New Richmond's most pressing issue? How do you think we should address this issue as a community? And what ideas do you have for solving or addressing it?
I think one of our biggest issues is industrial development, getting more businesses in our community. Everybody is concerned about taxes. They always say my taxes are too high. What we have to do, like I said earlier, is develop land in one means or another. We can purchase land, put it in a TIF district, so the city is made whole eventually for putting the utilities in. We can have first right of refusal on property. We can have a business buy the land, they get credits. There's different ways, but we have to attract business to New Richmond. Like I said earlier, Minnesota's business climate isn't very good for their businesses there. They're looking to come to Wisconsin or the Dakotas all the time. What we have to do is make it viable for them to come here. Our last large piece of land that we have in the industrial park, 25 acres, is going to be sold to a company in our community. That's how you get growth, when you get companies in your community growing. Those companies are staying, but now we have to try to attract other companies to our community, which to me is very important. And I think we've been missing the boat on that, because what I hear a lot of times is how much it's going to cost. But how much does it cost not to spend some money on this type of thing? Like I say, there's different means of getting this land. But if a company wanted to come here and say they wanted 20, 30, 40 acres, we don't have it. You can't tell a company that you'll have it in 6 to 12 months. They're going to be going somewhere else, and we're going to be out of luck. But I think that is a way of keeping our taxes lower, is by getting more businesses here. It's a snowball effect. If you have good paying jobs, these people buy houses in. As our population grows, people say, we want a Target or this other kind of business here. They don't just come here because we want them to come. We have to show them that we have the population to support them. And I think that's how we do it. We get good paying jobs here, and to me, that's a snowball effect.
Would you care for time to offer a response?
It'll be just a quick response. So, I'm big on listening. You don't learn much by talking, you learn more by listening. And a lot of people that I've talked with, how big does the city of Richmond need to be? And it's kind of a dog chasing its tail. You get bigger, you get whatever, a new business on in, you need more services, and taxes doesn't really seem to go down. It costs a lot of money to buy up land. And Jim and I have had many of these conversations, and we have a different opinion on how to do that, how to have that outcome. I don't think the city needs to be buying land. I think there's others that the private development, let the current landowners work with them on options or whatever, or if companies do want to come on in, connecting them with private landowners and let them work that deal out versus the city buying up land and sitting on it for 20, 30 years. I just don't know if that's the best use of taxpayers' money.
And would you care to respond, Jim?
Like one of the comments that Fred made earlier, we should get back to basics. I think we have done that very well with all of our services in our community. I think we have very good supervisors and managers here, just like the library. It's run well, and that's why we have to expand, because it doesn't meet our needs anymore. We have to do a lot of things off-site because of that. And other departments, I think they are run very well in our community. I don't think we get a lot of complaints about our services here. You talk about snow removal, but we don't have to worry this year so far. But other years, you see these guys out there at 1, 2 in the morning doing 12-hour shifts. Our streets, we just bought a new hot box, so that in the wintertime, they only have potholes. We can fill those with hot tar or blacktop now, which we couldn't do before. So we're trying to solve problems like that. We hear it from the community, but I think we are back to the basics, and I have no problem with our staff. They're doing a tremendous job.
Thank you. So question 2, Jim, we'll start with you. And you may recognize this as a repeat from the first session. But it's sponsored by the library, so I get to ask it twice. The library building project is on track to break ground this summer. What is your opinion of the project, and how would you rank the project in terms of priorities in the context of other city projects and initiatives? Please explain.
I'll tell you right now, it's the #1 project because we know it's going to happen. We've been working on this for 20 years. Fred's been here. We've been talking about this. We've been trying to get this to happen. We've had studies done 2 or 3 times. We found out how much we could get from the residents in the city, how much could be donated, that type of thing. The worst part is where these studies go, the top shelf. They collected dust. So finally now we have 100% of the council behind this. That is the key thing. We want to move forward. This library project is going to be for generations. Right now we have an 8,500 square foot building, which hasn't been adequate for 20 years. Now we're going to have a 30,000 square foot building, which is going to be good for 15, 20, 30 years before. I'm not going to have to worry about it, put it that way. But I think just the dedication right now of the community, they want to see this happen so bad. I know a person who I talked to today who is donating $50,000 to this today because she feels that strongly. Actually, it's my daughter's mother-in-law. But anyways, I won't say the name, but that's what people have, this passion for this library. And there's a lot of misconceptions that you're going to have this 3 stories of apartments above it. The reason we're having 3 stories of apartments is to make the city costs cheaper for that. We're both using a lot of the same infrastructure. We're sharing that. We're saving money doing it that way. That's why this project is going, because we looked at all these angles. Those apartments up there, people are asking already, how do I sign up? When you have young teachers coming in our town, or young people, nurses, anybody else, they're going to have 1-bedroom studios. They can get in there, which is perfect. What a location. You're downtown here. You got a grocery store, post office, bars, restaurants. The things you need is walkable. That's why we have it in our downtown area. And Fred and I have agreed on this, like I say, a long time. We worked with actually the
Let's say
school
20
board to
years,
get this done.
At least 20 years.
Yep, but we personally worked on this together, get this done. And I'm so happy to see this happening, to tell you the truth. I'm ecstatic.
Okay. Fred, same question. The library building project is on track to break ground this summer. What is your opinion of the project? How would you rank the project in terms of priorities in the context of other city projects and initiatives? Please explain.
Sure. Jim and I have worked on this for 20-some years at the council. So fully support the library. When I'd mentioned I was on the county board for 6 years, one of my proudest achievements on the county board is getting the county library tax moved from 71% to 100%. And what that means is, since we had our library, we were not subject to a county library tax. If your community doesn't have a library, then you pay a county library tax. And the county board prior to that deemed that the local community essentially needed to pick up 29% of the non-resident share. And working with other county board members, dog and pony shows, we actually got a lot of the townships to agree that that wasn't fair, that they're essentially being subsidized. So we got the county to move to 100%. So it just speaks to my commitment to the library. And I've always told the council this, is that the Mayor's Reading Challenge. Our August council meeting, was all the kids who read and met their objectives from the library, and the Mayor's Reading Challenge got their medal and a certificate, and we all lined up every August. And those are my most fun moments, probably most of the fun moments on the council, is just seeing the reaction of the kids and getting their medal, and it's just that sense of accomplishment. And I actually put this in my write-up in the paper. I had a lady approached me recently with her camera, and it's like, is this you? And she told me about how that impacted her kids, and her kids are now in college. And it was neat to hear that story about how they were impacted by the library. And other people have talked about the library and, what is the future of a library. Every year the usage goes up. So I fully support the library.
Jim, would you care for time for a rebuttal?
Not a real rebuttal, but I like a few seconds. I think people in the community don't realize that everybody doesn't have the means to have Wi-Fi at home, have a computer, that type of thing. This is huge at our library, that this resource is available to everybody in our community. Actually our whole area. Anybody that comes here has that resource. And I think it's so important that people realize that in this community, we look at each other, we got the cell phones, we got everything else. But there's a lot of people that wish they had that type of thing. There's actually probably more poverty in Richmond than we realize with the food shelves and everything else. But I think a library is a place where people can gather, learn, and get help.
Would you care for 2 minutes to respond to that?
No, I think it's well said.
Wonderful. I will start with you, Fred, for the next
Sure.
question. Like most municipalities, New Richmond has many aging streets, alleys, sidewalks, and utility infrastructure. What do you think the city's approach should be to addressing these projects? Would you prioritize full reconstruction projects, or would you focus on smaller repairs and routine annual maintenance?
Boy, so, as mayor, and Jim, the council went through, we'd hear from the department heads, and I echo what Mike Montello, what Jim has said about our staff. We have fabulous staff. They come up with, we work through a 5-year plan of what are the most important projects and the rankings. You get the feedback from all the aldermen, and it's listening to the public. We hear about roads that are needing some attention and where do they fit on the 5-year plan on fixing those roads or repairing them. We listen a lot to staff. I'm not a road expert. Mike Montello's not a road expert. You got to listen to people who know about that stuff. I can talk about computers, that's more my line of work, but road projects is not. Listen to staff, listen to the public. I'm big on listening. And then you have to work with the council on the prioritizations. There is a limited amount of money that can be spent. And you have to prioritize all of these different wants, all of these different needs. As I've referenced earlier, I'm more of the back to the basics. Let's concentrate on emergency services. Let's make sure our roads are in decent shape. They get plowed in the winter, which they do. As Jim said, not much of an issue this year, but other years, I live not too far from the garage. I hear the trucks go out at 3 o'clock in the morning. But it's all very important to us.
Same question, Jim, and I will reread it for you. Like most municipalities, New Richmond has many aging streets, alleys, sidewalks, and utility infrastructure. What do you think the city's approach should be to addressing these projects? Would you prioritize full reconstruction projects, or would you focus on smaller repairs and routine annual maintenance?
Well, usually every year we try to do 2 major projects, but we prioritize. We look at the age of the streets, and a lot of times you look at the infrastructure underneath. Downtown, in the core of our city, there's a lot of old piping under there, lead pipes, that type of thing. And when we're gonna do a project, we look at the whole thing. We don't just look at the blacktop or the concrete. We look below that and see what's down there. Actually, we have the ability to go through all the sewer lines and everything else. Now, we have cameras that can do that, so we can see what's underneath there. And we try to prioritize, like I said, because of old infrastructure. But what we're trying to do now also is we're trying to plan earlier. A lot of times we start planning in August, September, October. We're planning earlier. What we're doing now we started in January. Every month we're looking at a different area up through May. And then we want the supervisors to get the information in on this stuff. What we want to do is getting our bidding out early in the year, because if we wait too long, other companies that are doing this construction have their schedule set up already. So then we'll get more highballed on projects. But if we're able to get our project front and center, like in January, or even get them pretty much settled by December, we can get better bidding on that. We'll see more bids coming in, more competitive bidding. And that's what we have to do. But we still have to be patching, and like I said, we're getting this hot box now, where we can do this 12 months out of the year now. So this year, the potholes were bad. In some years, when we have a lot of frost, they're terrible. It's like a canyon out there. It's waiting for your tires to blow out. But I think by using this and find more inventive ways of doing things, we get the county to come in here to crack seal, that type of thing. But that's not the complete solution. It's a Band-Aid, that type of thing. So I think really we have to look at which streets are the most important streets. If they're main thoroughfares, definitely, because they're gonna have the most traffic. If they're feeders, sometimes they get pushed off a little bit more. But again, we believe in our staff because they are the ones that understand it. Like Fred said, we're not experts. We're listening to our staff because they research us. They know what's underneath the streets.
Care to respond?
Just a quick one. One of the things that, Jim talked about, the planning. We started basically getting, with the 5-year plan that I mentioned, and we've been doing this for a number of years, so it's not, credit to one over the other here. It's working together, and what we started doing was, the engineering of the road. So if you're looking at your 5-year plan, well, you're already looking at what's probably going to be done the following year, and let's get some of that engineering done so that we can get the bids out even earlier in the year so that we have more competitive bids and better pricing. And it's been a project that, we've both worked on this stuff for 28 years together.
Would you like to respond to that, Jim?
Yeah, one good thing is that we have our own city engineer, and on smaller projects, he can do some of the smaller projects, which saves us money. That's why we have our own city engineer to do that, because otherwise, we get, like SCH in town here, we get companies like that to come in, but the cost is high. Everything costs more. But if we can do, the more we can do in-house, that's really important.
Thank you. We will move on to the next question, and Jim, I will start with you. What action steps do you feel the city could take to help existing businesses grow, attract new businesses to New Richmond, or otherwise improve the local economy?
I talked about it a little bit earlier already, but I think being business friendly is really huge. You can't just say it, you have to show it. Our staff has to staff gets out there and talks to businesses. We had a number of businesses where they had a hard time pulling the trigger. Should they expand? Should they come to Richmond? Should they buy land? We help them through the whole process. That's the important thing. Because a lot of times when somebody's starting a new business, they don't know what to do. They don't know which way to turn. Everything they do costs money. So what we try to do is help them through the process. We have steps that they follow. Sometimes we get the University of River Falls involved in this too, to help them do a business plan. Because like I say, when we had Barley John's out there, great facility, but we had 2 people that never ran a business before. As their downfall, but to get them to start that building, we help them try to get through that. And I think that's the key, the outreach from our staff here. It's so important. Again, showing, being friendly to everybody, making them feel comfortable. I think we do a good job of really doing that type of thing. It's not easy, like I say, because the price of everything has gone up. So that's why they need help to get through these things. Whether it be loans, we have facade loans here to make their businesses downtown better. We tell them what the resources are. We try to help them walk to those resources, because there is funding out there for a lot of different projects, but they don't know where to look. That's a big problem there. So the city is a resource, and I think our staff does a really good job of trying to help them get solid footing.
Thank you. Same question. I will reread it for you. What action steps do you feel the city could take to help existing businesses grow, attract new businesses to New Richmond, or otherwise improve the local economy?
I'll make it a little bit shorter, but I think partnering is a big thing with whatever the regulations and stuff are, you know, water lines, sewer lines, all of that type of stuff. Having those known fees and that type of stuff up front, so more information, it's more transparent. They know what they're getting into if they want to move here, if they want to expand. So partnering with them through that entire process, and also listening. Always hear about some regulations that, you know, this is not how other communities are doing it. I think, and we've done a good job of that in the past, and I think we need to continue listening to their concerns. We don't always have all the answers. Listen. They'll tell us what worked, and we can do more research and that type of stuff. And I think just listening and partnering with them is the best way forward.
Care to respond?
Yes, I agree with Fred. Sometimes we have regulations and we think this is the only way you do things. Sometimes we have to bend or look at the situation and work with that person. Sometimes we look at these and say to ourselves, why is that a regulation here? Sometimes we have to look at our ordinances and say, how can we make these more business friendly? I think that's a key all the time. Because some things I just shake my head and say, why are we making tougher on businesses to come here? So we have to be nimble and quick to actually work with these businesses out there and make them feel that we want to help them and be friendly to them.
Care to respond, Fred?
I agree with all of it.
Okay. We will move on to the next question, and Fred, I will start with you. What steps do you feel the city can take to ensure availability and affordability of housing in the future?
Well, so I'm not in the camp that the city needs to be the sole person, the sole entity putting up housing. You look at the apartment buildings, all of the houses that are going up. I think we're doing a good job. And did the question touch on affordable housing?
It did.
All right. I know of a number of units that have been built in the last few years, you know, BB Lofts, Croft Apartments, and there's others out there, Boardman Meadows. I don't know how we sit with other communities with the amount of affordable housing. Quick internet search that I did, it seems like we actually have more than Hudson. I may be wrong, but that's just the internet searches that I was doing. It's something that again, I've been out of city government for 2 years, so I'm not sure if other companies are working with the city on building any others. And again, it was what I said in the paper was, I don't think we need to be doing this on our own. I'm open to ideas if other companies are proposing some. I think we need to be careful though with some of these developers. Developer with BB Lofts is I'll say a well-respected developer. We've had other developers that have promised the moon and the sun and how good their developments, their affordable housing is going to be, and there's going to be police officers and nurses and stuff living there. And we've kind of found out that's not actually true. So I think you need to vet some of these developers out a little bit more if we're going to build additional affordable housing.
I will ask the same question, Jim. What steps do you feel the city can take to help ensure availability and affordability of housing in the future?
Well, one thing the city did already, we have what we call TIF districts, tax or incremental finance districts. And what it is that when we have a TIF district, when we close that TIF district out, the state of Wisconsin has passed a new law that we can extend that TIF district one more year. So we're doing this with 3 TIF districts. We closed one out in 22, one in 23, and now we're closing one out in 24. The funds from those 3 TIF districts, and it has to go for affordable housing, is going to be between $1.3 and $1.4 million, which can go for affordable housing. Now the council is going to have to find out how we're going to do that. Sometimes when you go up for federal grants or state grants, you need matching funds. Do we do it that way? There's different ways, I guess you could say, to skin a cat. So what we're looking at now, we've got probably this $1.4 million towards affordable housing. Do we try to work with contractors? We buy some land and have it paid back through a TIF district? You can recycle this money, but we do have this feed money to start this program off. So after this year, like I say, we'll have about $1.4 million. We had a housing study done approximately a year and a half ago. And one of the number one things this study said, we need more affordable housing. There's a few things we've done in town, but like again, I say, and affordable housing doesn't mean that you don't always have any money, you don't have a job. Like I said before, you can have a student teacher coming out of school or they're going to be in a community. How do we get them like apartments where they can afford them, that type of thing? We can have somebody that's starting a new job coming into your community. Affordable housing doesn't mean you're always buying a house. It means that you're trying to help other people out, and that's what affordable housing is about. So you get them people started, a young couple, that thing, by helping them get started. However you do it, eventually, hopefully they'll be able to buy another house, and then that house will be available for somebody else. To me, that's affordable housing.
Would you care to respond?
Sure, sure. So I think Jim is kind of referencing the ALICE population, kind of a newer term. So it isn't just the low income. But I think that's a great opportunity for the city to listen to the community, advertise out this, what are some of the options? Let's have some listening sessions. Let's have some feedback. What does the community want for our community? Where do they see this money should be spent? What type of affordable housing and locations of that, where should it be located at? I think it's a great opportunity to listen to the public.
I'll agree 100% that this isn't going to happen overnight. Like I said, we've had the first 2 years, that money we've had, but now we have to decide how you're going to implement it. I mean, that's the key. The community is going to know about it. If the city wants to buy some land, don't have a clue. But if we can get contractors in here, people that build houses, maybe through them, somebody building a house gets a discount maybe, or helps with their, financing somehow. So these are all things that are going to be vetted out over the next year or so. At least we have that money there where we can actually spend it.
Thank you. We will start our next question with Jim. New Richmond's population is continuing to grow and evolve. What would your approach be to supporting the changing and increasing needs of the community in a fiscally responsible way?
Well, I look at it that the new bridge was built, everybody thought boom, the city's going to explode. It's been a gradual growth. And we, as a city, we are prepared for this growth. And that's been one of the big keys is the new bridge. We always say the bridge, but that is a key thing. And we've had a lot of people coming over from Minnesota. When I was going around getting people to sign my papers, to get our 200 signatures, I asked people how long they've been here, and they said, well, you just moved here either because they had family here or they didn't like the situation in the cities area. So that spurred our growth here. But I think that we have to be able to manage the growth and, again, fiscally sound. We try not to borrow pretty consistently, I think, for the last 10 years, not borrow more than $2 million a year. And another thing we changed was, I would say 20 years ago, when we borrowed up to 30 years. Now we just borrow up to 20 years because we want to get these things paid off sooner. And then when we get bond ratings, like Mike Montello said earlier, our bond rating has gone up. We're about one tier down from the top because we've been fiscally sound. They look at what we've done as a city. Got to credit the mayor and aldermen for doing this over the last 10 years because we have actually stayed pretty level on our borrowing. We still get projects done, but we try to do it as efficiently as we can, and I think we have done that, which I think is huge here. Nobody wants to see their taxes go up, but when you look at the tax, thank you. You look at the tax bill, it's not just the city of New Richmond. Now we have St. Croix County sending the tax bills out. But at one time when people got their tax bill and it went up, look what the city's doing to us. There's 4 different entities that go into our taxes. So you have to look at that. For the last 10 years, the city of New Richmond's tax rate hasn't gone up very much. The schools have gone up because we had that project, which is almost paid off now. It's hard to believe that's 17 years ago, and they borrowed for 20 years, so that's almost paid off now too, which is really good.
I will ask the same question to you, Fred. I'll reread it. New Richmond's population is continuing to grow and evolve. What would your approach be to supporting the changing and increasing needs of the community in a fiscally responsible way?
Listen, I think, touch on some of the things that Jim has talked about. I mean, we've been in government together for many, many years, decades. We have some of the aldermen here. We have credit to all of them. We've all brought things to the table through the years that we have been on city government. We have worked with each other. If we were in Madison, we'd be saying we're working across the aisle, but it's nonpartisan. We all love our community. We all want what we think is best for our community, and we all work together. I mean, we've worked together for quite a few years. I'm big on public-private partnerships. I don't think the city should be doing things on their own. We need to be listening. What does the public want? Lots of people want lots of services, but then, as Jim has referenced the taxes, nobody really wants to pay for everything. So and Mike kind of touched on this as well. It's that balancing act of everybody wants a bunch of stuff. We don't have enough money for it. How do we make this work? How do we come up with efficiencies? Jim mentioned that working with the county and stuff and having them doing some of the crack sealing and stuff. If we can get a service done, more efficient, we need to be exploring those.
Jim, would you care to respond?
I just think that I agree with Fred as listening, having listening sessions, that type of thing. When we have a new development, we're going to have a listening session next week on March 28th on a housing project that's going to be coming in on the north side over there. People have concern about streets and roads. There's listening session will be on the 28th, and it's going to Plan Commission the following week. But again, is listening to concerns, because that is a concern. Is there going to be more traffic in my neighborhood? Can we do it a different way? But I think when people have concerns and they come to these meetings, that's the biggest thing. Like Mike said, now we got a great crowd here. Usually we have 1 or 2 people. And then I hear, well, the people aren't informed. Well, if they want to be informed, they can be, because every single meeting is on our website too. And also our city council meeting is recorded, and you can look at it on the city website, the previous council meeting, so you can look at that kind of stuff. So I think, I think that's really important, just saying, yeah, we didn't know about this. There's always opportunities, but you have to seek it out. And one problem is, we lost our newspaper. We have the Star Observer. That's basically Hudson and River Falls. We used to have a newspaper here. We had 20 to 25 pages of New Richmond news once a week. Now we get a half a page, maybe a page if we get lucky, but that's it. So to me, our identity went away. We had a radio station at one time too. Our identity went away. I could hear the Packer games and the Wisconsin games on our own radio station. That went away too. So we've lost a lot of identity to get that word out to the community, but they can get it out if they want to, if they want to listen.
Like any opportunity to respond?
Sure, and again, it'll be, I'm not a huge speaker. Glad to hear there's, community meetings, community listen sessions are continued. We used to call that the New Richmond Way. Before projects would go to a single vote on any, whether it's Plan Commission, Council. We've had lots of meetings. We've had lots of displays in the past where you come in, you were given stickers to put, that's how you were voting. That's how we asked the public to provide feedback on designs of the streets and everything else. And it's just something I think we're all very proud of when we had those type of things. I think we need to go back to that when there's controversial issues. Before they are voted on, let's listen to the public. Let's give them the opportunity. Let's give them the information that we know, so it doesn't have the appearance of being snuck through.
And I will start the next question with you, Fred. Voters in New Richmond will also see referenda questions on the ballot in April, including the St. Croix County Public Safety Referendum for additional staffing and the School District of New Richmond referendum for facility updates. What are your thoughts on each referendum?
I love referendums. The public speaks. Instead of privileged few making decisions, the will of the people is heard. I love it. So individually, I support our police. I think we have excellent officers in our community. So I am supportive of the county's referendum on emergency services. Burnsville was referenced. I live on the north side. There was a police standoff here, I don't know, a month ago. I am remote for a large bank, or a remote worker systems engineer. I was sitting in my house and I realized all these squad cars are showing up. We count 15 police cars. When they pulled out the long rifles, the long guns, I called my supervisor in California that I may have to be leaving. So if everything goes fine, but if I'm not on an online meeting, look for a text that I've made it, if things go south, I'm gonna make an exit. So Burnsville could have very easily happened here in the city of New Richmond. That standoff ended peacefully, but I support the police. When things like that happen, you want more police officers. They are putting their lives on the line just like a fire. You want firemen to show up. Enough firemen to do the task. Qualified firemen. It's a tough job. Tough job. I support the referendum there. School. So for full disclosure, my wife is a school teacher at a different school district, but she's a school teacher. I'm nearing retirement. I've started driving school bus. So 22 Turtle is my route in the morning. So I'm kind of biased on education. I look at it as well of what education has changed, how it's changed my life. So I support both.
I will ask you the same question, Jim. Voters in New Richmond will also see referenda questions on the ballot in April, including the St. Croix County Public Safety Referendum for additional staffing and the School District of New Richmond referendum for facility updates. What are your thoughts on each referendum?
One thing that Fred said I want to comment is that he loves referendums. But, you know, on something major like this, I agree 100%, but city council people, supervisors in the county are elected to make decisions. I think the difference is sometimes we have a lot of inside information which we can't disclose. And we'd like to, but we can't always do that. But that's why you're elected to make tough decisions. But these here are both district-wide and county-wide. St. Croix County one, I agreed. Anything that can make our county safer, I'm 100% behind it. But the problem I had with this is, as a county, they're always so proud of their mill rate. It stays right here. But the problem is, or it goes down, mill rate goes down, but your value goes up. So it's sort of a wash that way. But the county's so proud of keeping this mill rate low. The problem was they should have been hiring these staff over the last 10 years. If you need more county sheriff's deputies, you don't ask for 10 at one time or 12. They should have started 5, 6 years ago, like 2 a year, even the other departments. That's why the last referendum didn't pass. They said we want $3.7 million, I believe, something like that. Well, you can't do that. They should have been doing that gradually, and they wouldn't be going to this referendum either. But I agree, to keep our counties safe, I agree that they need this staffing. And I agree 100% on that. With the school referendum, they did it the right way. They had, like, I believe was it 45 or 54 community members, the teachers, parents, other people. They did it the right way. They looked into it. They looked at different options. The community had a chance to go through the buildings and see what the problems are. So everybody had a chance to look at this. My kids are gone. Now my youngest one just got in college, grandson. But I'm paying it forward because we had the schools here. We have to look at our future, our youth. Like I said before, they're our destiny for our community. They're our future. So you have to look forward what's good for our kids and our community. And it's a big number, but when I see like for a $400,000 house, it's $180. How much do people waste on coffee every year? Just, you know, that type of thing. And that's a $400,000 house. Is it worth $180 a year to have a better community?
Would you like 2 minutes to respond?
I won't take the full 2 minutes, but I still like referendums. I like the feedback from the public. I like the public weighing in and providing that feedback.
And do you have any response?
Well, I don't disagree. Like I said, referendums are fine in certain situations. But if we had a referendum on everything, because they cost a lot of money too, to have a referendum, again, that's why you or elect officials to make most of the decisions. Like I say, when it comes to a county-wide one or a school district-wide one, that's when you have a referendum.
Thank you. Jim, I will start with you. If you are elected, what would your priorities be when it comes to the annual budget, and how will you ensure that property taxes are spent wisely to benefit the community?
I think we talked about that quite a bit already. I think it's, again, being efficient in what you do. We have good staff people. They get, like Fred said, we're not experts in any of this. we trust our staff people. If you don't trust your staff people, they shouldn't be there. So we want them to be efficient as they can. You find out what the needs are. There's needs and wants. So the needs come first, of course, and then you look at the wants. And can we afford the wants? Streets, if they're falling apart, are needs. There's a different look from the city council to the community. We had a survey of the community about different infrastructure things. So I think there were like 8 items. So on things, with the city council, the parks were number 7. Community parks and trails are number 7 with the city council. All the infrastructure stuff was first. With the community, it was either second or third. They want parks and trails. You have to find out how to balance that type of thing. And I think what we always try to do is we try to go out and find grants out there. We're going to have the new trail. We're engineering it this year on K out here. It's going to go past our 2 Whispering Prairie and Fox Run. We're paying 20%, but the county's paying that one too, I believe. But on County A, we just put that new trail in all the way up to Richmond Way. The city paid 20% of that. The rest was paid by either federal. One part of it was federal and the other part was state. When you have federal things, of course, you have to jump through many, many more hoops. If we get state funding, it's a lot easier. That's why that trail on A took a couple of years, because it was federal funding. But that's what we have to do. We have to balance our wants and needs. And we have a lot of wants because people say, do this, do that. When their taxes go up, they say, why'd they go up? Well, if you wanted this and that, it has to be a balance. And that's what the council tries to do. I think they've done a great job on that.
Fred, I will ask you the same question. If elected, what would your priorities be when it comes to the annual budget, and how will you ensure that property taxes are spent wisely to benefit the community?
Ditto to what a lot of Jim said. I mean, we've gone through 28, 29 budgets together. I look at the aldermen that are in the council, former council members. We've done this process many times. We encourage people to speak up, let us know what your priorities are. Speak to your alderman, call your alderman, let them know what needs that you have or your wants in your area of the city. And it's a tough deal because, you know, we used to, so when I first became mayor, we had a bond salesman and good gentleman, I'm not gonna, but the amount of money we were borrowing prior was, you know, it's not uncommon for a community, a fast-growing community like the city of New Richmond, to have this kind of debt. That's when we were first starting to, you know, our debt load's kind of getting up there. We're kind of reassured everything is fine, everything is fine. Well, it turns out, you know, we were 23.4 million in debt, and there was only 3 other communities in the state of Wisconsin, our size, that had more debt than us. And that's kind of where we stopped. We didn't completely stop borrowing money, but all right, this kind of was a wake-up call. So you have to be able to listen, you have to be able to, Mike Montello mentioned, ask some of those tough questions, be smart enough to be dangerous. You don't have all the answers, but there's a lot of information that is out there. You need to ask lots of questions. How do we become more efficient? How do we, there's a project, how do we make sure that that project is being equitably paid for by everyone who's going to be using it versus just one side or the other? And it's a balancing act. It's a tough balancing act.
Care to respond, Jim?
I'd like to say about one thing. Most of the things that are done in Richmond, the league, you know, softball, hockey, all these types of things, even the center, are mainly, cities maybe 50%, 53%, but who always pays for this infrastructure? The city. And I think when we do things, we have to get more buy-in from outside the city to help out on these things. The library, 53% city, and the rest is the townships or the surrounding area. And I think that's one of the key things, that we can't pay for everything. We need help to make these things better, because everybody coming into our community, our streets, we have 65 miles of streets. Nobody realizes that. Who uses them? Everybody. Our parks, who uses them? Everybody in the area uses those. So I think it's a joint effort trying to get partners to do everything. I think that's so important, is partnerships. And that's the way we get things done. And hopefully, we're talking about the new hockey arena. I support that, and having different ways of looking at it. The city's given the land, but there's other ways the city possibly can help out and working together to make our community better.
Would you care to respond as well?
Sure. There's tons of great projects out there. The city can't do them by themselves. You have to be looking at who else is using that, whatever that service is, and how do we equitably pay for it? Because you can't put everything on the backs of the city taxpayers.
Thank you. We're getting there. We're going to make it. We're to question 9.
Right.
I will start with Fred. In only one word, why should the people of New Richmond vote for you?
Listener.
And you kept it to one word. Okay. Jim, same question. In only one word.
Wait a second. I've got to use 2 words. I heard other people use more words.
Fair enough. Why should the people of New Richmond vote for you?
Community driven.
Would you care to respond?
I'd be breaking the one word regulations, rules that we were given.
He wants to move this on.
Fair enough.
No, it's just, Jim and I have been involved in this stuff in our community. We both love the community. We both give back to this community. We may disagree on how we do some of the things, but every person running, they love their community. They're trying to give back. So it's kudos to everyone who's run.
And would you care to add anything?
I mean, I agree that giving back to the community, that's why I've been actually been serving in one way or another, I've been in some form or another for 40 years. I was on the park board for 30 years, like I say, on the council for 28, mayor 2 years, but I've been on probably every committee that we've ever had, and I've seen it all. And I always want to give back to the community, because I pride myself. When I go anywhere else, I talk about our community, how great we are, the things we've got going for us. I mean, you look at our school system, Northwoods, excuse me, our airport, everything. We have it really all going right here. I'm just proud of what happens. And when we get in the closing comments, I'll tell you how proud I am.
Fantastic. We are down to our last question before closing comments. And again, you may recognize this from the previous session. Jim, I will start with you. What is one positive thing you respect about your opponent?
I think I respect Fred because he's been involved in this for about 30 years. I think we're about tied in service on the council and as mayor, I mean, the total like that. But he's dedicated. He wouldn't do it for this whole time because he loves New Richmond. And I think that's the important thing. We don't always agree on everything, but that's good. When you like to hear differing views, I think that's very important. If everybody agrees all the time, there's something wrong. So I mean, on the council, we don't always agree, but I think that's one thing. Fred listens.
Fred, what is one positive thing you respect about your opponent?
Oh, I'll get into more than one. So, Jim is a good man. When Jim told me last summer that I'm not going to run again, and so I started talking with people about, you know, getting back into it and stuff. And that's one thing that has come up multiple times. I've always said Jim is a good man. Whoever's asked me my opinion of Jim, I usually start out with Jim is a good man. My oldest daughter was getting married. Sent out, obviously it invited everybody in the council. Jim cut his vacation short to show up to the wedding. So I give him credit. I mean, there's a lot of respect for that. Jim is a good man.
Wonderful.
May disagree on how to get some things done, but Jim is a good man.
Thank you. We are ready for our closing statements. And going back to the coin toss that we did at the beginning, you will be making a closing statement first. You will have 2 minutes, and then you will be able to make a final closing statement for 2 minutes.
Hard.
I mean, he's ready. So,
I probably won't take the full 2 minutes, so I'm big on listening. Again, I think I mentioned this earlier, you don't learn much by talking, you learn more by listening. And I think we need to be listening to the community, whether it's a referendum, listening sessions. I'm big on hearing feedback from the community. What are they thinking? I think when controversial issues come to this community, we need to listen first. I'm not opposed to any company proposing whatever they want to propose, but before it goes to a vote on anywhere, I think we need to be bringing that to the public and listening to them. So the city of Stone we called it the WeTech building. Bosch, their second manufacturing site, is now Wisconsin Lighting. I tried to sell it as a library because it's like if you could, fix this up. I think the estimate at that time was $2 million. Be a great library. People didn't buy into it. So be it. But there was a company that wanted to put up a multi-story apartment building. Before that went to anywhere, before planning commission, before a lot of staff spent time on that, we had a public meeting in the WeTech building, and we heard from the community. They did not want that. So you don't see an apartment building there. We listened. And I just think we would do better as a community by listening more.
you may begin your closing remarks.
As I said, I'm community driven. I spend thousands of hours of my own time on projects in New Richmond. I was a lead person when we purchased the Freedom Park, which is our largest park, 100 acres. I raised $50,000 for upgrades and a new scoreboard at Citizens Field. I sold those baseballs, 25 of those on the fence, and I sold advertising on the scoreboard. With Lynette McCarty, I spent 5 years to raise money for $150,000 for the skate park. It took us 5 years to find a site and location for that. And we did that through the LTI, the Leadership Trust Initiative. A lot of community people went through that. That was our project, and we stuck to it for 5 years. There's two projects I'm still involved in. I'm doing it with Karen Smallage. We have raised $125,000 for the new disc golf course. This is a championship golf course. Our designer, Tim Mackey, from Minnesota St. Cloud, said this is going to be the best disc golf course in the state, in western Wisconsin and eastern Minnesota. We're going to have state tournaments here within 3 years, he believes. The next project I've been involved in for 7 years is a Freedom Park project. I've been involved in that for 7 years, and I've worked on the fundraising committee for 3 years. We're submitting for $1.7 million, and I've been working on this for a long time, and hopefully this comes to fruition. It's for our veterans, our seniors, and our youth that are our future in our community. So I've spent hundreds of thousands of hours over the 30 years trying to make things better for our kids and families.
And in closing, I would like to say a few thank yous. Just to the 4 candidates who were here tonight, thank you for giving your time and for being willing to answer questions. Thank you to Mr. Ryan Subura's civics class students. Reminder that every one of these questions was written and submitted by high school students in civics classes, and I think they did a tremendous job.
I'd like to say one. To give Mr. Subaru a lot of kudos because he's done this. I've been at the high school a couple of times. Mike Montello's been there to talk to his civics classes. He's organized this, and I think he's really has a lot of students involved. And like I say, they're the future of our community. They should know what's going on here, but kudos to you.
Thank you. I would also like to thank the volunteers tonight helping with timekeeping and keeping the event running smoothly. Izzy Perry, Ava Zach, and Azariah Zapeta, thank you for your time. I would like to thank the voters who attended this evening and to those who watched online. We appreciate your commitment and civic engagement. Thank you to Michelle Scanlon, our city clerk, for providing not only exceptional video and technical service, but also voting information. Thank you also to Tom Linfers, who is here as a photojournalist, and for his media coverage of tonight's event. Again, this is supported by Friday Memorial Library, and one of our core beliefs is community engagement and civic involvement. So we are very proud to be a part of this and just really want to thank all of you for being here tonight.
You.